Hello, here I am back again, just for the last 40 minutes or so of our morning offering on the 20th of July, 2023. Just a note, if you're wandering down the high street, you'll see opposite to the courthouse a truck loaded with television gear, and it is there because, as they frequently do, the makers of Grace, the detective series that appears on television, are making an episode, or at least part of an episode, using the town hall today. So Lewis is highlighted yet again. Did council make much of it? No, not a bit. I'd have everybody out there being interviewed and talking about it and so on and so forth. If I was doing no, it's too much like an initiative, too much like trying to boost the town. Oh gosh, no, that's not our job. Our job is to sit in smoky corridors, trying to negotiate and strategize and do all sorts of things which have absolutely nothing, sweet bugger all, to promoting this town. But there you are. That's the way it is. But at least we've got some recognition on the television screen. Okay, now Lewis is full of characters, and I was sitting here yesterday after the show, and Sally, God bless her, the beautiful wife of the owner Cliff Ayres, actually very very typical of this hotel and the way it's managed. Very typical of the sort of people that we've got backing us up on Mirador is Shannon, the beautiful Shannon, was ill yesterday and couldn't come in. Now that's the first time in almost a year and a half that I've known Shannon not show up. As a matter of fact, is the number of sick days taken by the staff here very small indeed. But anyway, yesterday it was one of them, and Shannon was poorly. So Sally came in and she helped set everything up, and she gave us the usual service that we've become accustomed to. But one of the things that she did say to me is, she said, I love the hat, Keith. She said, now that's the hat that you're wearing in the painting of you, the portrait of you, which is in the cancer research shop at the base of School Hill. And indeed it is, and I'm very privileged and honored to have that painting done of me and put up to try and raise some money for charity. And it is done by Laura Hills, and who is elderly. In fact, she and I are on a par of age, but she paints local starlets, dignitaries, and other odds and sods, which I would rate. And they go into the window, and my portrait is there in the window. And Sally came by when she was opening up yesterday. She said, "Oh, you know, I looked at your picture, Keith," and I felt sorry for her, but nonetheless, she was able to do that. But the artist has been around for quite some time and does a remarkable job for a charity. And like me, she is now incapacitated to some extent, but she still struggles on and does things because it is for our community and it is for charity. So we're going to show you one episode from Leslie's, Laura, yes, Leslie Hill's stock of portraits, because what we tried to do was we tried to bring to life those people that she paints, and this is one of the very first that she did. So let's take a look at this offering. Once we got the system working again, every time you switch it off, it comes back. And it's got she's got a headache for some reason. You would think that you would think that it was getting pissed off at us. It's not that at all. It's just a little bit lazy. That's all. So here we are. Here's Leslie in her portraits.
Hello, welcome to Lewis.
Behind me you can see the cancer research shop windows, but they are unusually empty. Any other year you would be seeing Leslie Hills painting right here. She is painting the people of Lewis. They are many recognizable faces. Today, we're speaking to one of these people behind the paintings.
My name is Tony Kalume, but most people call me Anthony Kalume. That's what my mom used to call me. So I am actually one of the few people from Lewis who have been working with the police around hate crime. So we've been, when I say we, it's Diversity Lewis is a group that was formed 10 years ago. And we were actually concerned about the level of racism within the town. So we managed to get a few people who were really up for a challenge. So we started this group knowing that it's not going to be easy. And most people were saying Lewis is not a racist town. And some people are saying, oh yes, Lewis is a racist town. So we had polarity. So we managed to get people to come over and have a meeting at the Pelham House. And we called it Have Your Say. So we got people together and we managed to get an Eventbrite event where you had to get your emails. So from that emails, we got a mailing list. So from that mailing list, we had a meeting where everybody brainstormed and said, oh, we need more talks about cultural things. Some people say, oh, we just need somewhere to have fun, venue, to have music, food, fashion. So what happened is we had different ideas. People came with, let's celebrate Black History Month. So we managed to have an international soup festival where everybody came with soup from all over the world. So we had soup from Czech Republic, we had soup from Iran, we had soup from Thailand, we had soup from Kenya, we had soup from England, So we got everybody together, and some of the restaurants, the Indian restaurant, they offered. They said, oh, we'll give you some soup for free. So we had quite a lot of soup, so we called it the International Soup Festival. And it ran for 4 years, at the All Saints Center. And everybody came there, because there was no class, there was no age, it was multi-generational, and it worked quite well because we had shots. So people used to have shots of soup and go to the next stall, have a shot of soup. If they like it, then they sit down and then they buy a bowl, for $5 or something, So it was so well organized and it was so appreciated that it became claustrophobic. The place became too small for so we had to stop, 2 years ago. We stopped doing the soup festival, but it was quite a good way to bring cohesion so we've been doing events like in the restaurants, people want some music. So we've been doing that. And then Leslie knows what I do because I did vigil for George Floyd in June, when when George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis, and it was just for members of Vassy Lewis. So I thought maybe 30 people will come. You know, you put an event on Facebook and yeah, I'm going. It was like, oh, only 12 people said they're going, so it's okay. So I went there, put the got the photograph of George Floyd. I just magnified it big. So I was walking down the street with it, and then suddenly I see all these people, you know, because I told everybody to dress in black. And I was looking everywhere. Wow, you know, I looked, there are so many people, and there were like more than 5,000 people turned up, you know, and I was like, what? So what we did, I had anticipated something like that, but I didn't expect so many. So I had stewards. Some of the members were high vis and started giving them physical distance. So it went all the way up to the court, you know, the court, and then some of it spilled down to the Session Street here in Lewis. So it was such an occasion, you know. And then what we did, we had 8 minutes of silence, you know, and 48 seconds, just because that's how long does somebody stayed on somebody's knee and died, you know. So we did that for 8 minutes, which was quite a long time, but it was quite short. When you saw all the people there, and then there was somebody with a drone who took aerial shots, and I'm so sad nobody took a video of it, but still you can see the physical distance of the crowd. So yeah, we've been doing events like that. We've been working with the police around hate crime. We've been working with the schools, going to assemblies and speaking about your identity and where you come from, you know, just to get people to know that we are all the same. Racism is something that you learn and you can unlearn. So, and I've been working also with universities, you know, doing, you know, work with the Heritage Lottery Fund. We got some funding from the Heritage Lottery Fund. So we've been working with the museums, Royal Pavilion Museums, and we did an exhibition called Fashion Cities Africa, which brought designers from North Africa, which is Casablanca, and then South Africa, Johannesburg. Then we got people from the West, Lagos, and then from the East, Nairobi. And we brought all their fashion into Brighton Museum. And people came even from America just to see it, because it has never been done like that before. You know, everybody thinks, oh, people dress in Africa in skins, or they dress in, you know. So when they saw contemporary, you know, artists, who even Beyonce and all these Rihanna actually wear their you know, designs, it was amazing, you know. So it was contemporary African city fashion, you know. So it was a different look at people and seeing that our main aim is to celebrate our differences. That's what we do. I think that's what Leslie liked about it.
When did Leslie paint you?
Actually, we met in December last year, and she said, there's a competition in January I want to enter, and I need you I need to take your portrait of you. So I said, okay, fine. So I sent her some pictures. She said, no, I don't want it like that. You know, I want it like this. I said, okay, then take a picture then. So she took a picture of the way she wanted, because I'd given her a full, I said, no, I just want your face, but looking that side. So she came and took a picture of me, and that was in December. And then she said the competition is in January. So I don't know if she submitted it or not, because I haven't seen her for quite a while because of the pandemic.
Well, there you go. Leslie's people, and an interesting chap there. Who can be seen around Lewes from time to time. And indeed, most of the people who are subjects of her paintings can be. They're people of interest. Let's put it that way. I was going to say substance. It certainly, if they did want to be, but it certainly wasn't substance. This thing keeps me as poor as a church mouse. Oh dear, dear, dear. But there we go. It's the way we keep on attempting to keep everything on the straight and narrow. Everything on the straight and narrow. Now, I have something here that is, because it's 10:35, we've got a little bit to go. I've got something here, which all I can see is it says that it's a compilation of me. And so I don't know what the programs are. But it's a huge length. I can't possibly do that. But there's one of 12 minutes in which I ruminate about drink, which I've shown in the last couple of times in the last little while. We'll show it again today to take us out to 11 o'clock. So here I am once again worrying about drink. Well, wine. Wine. No beer. Gracious as well. Not even going to talk about wine. I thought I was, but I've decided instead, and sometimes the nose for a nice drink steers you in a different direction, as indeed does a nose for a good story. I was going to spend just a minute or two talking about cocktails. Now I'm going to talk about them for several minutes. Because when I was researching cocktails to find out where they were nowadays, and I thought that they'd all but disappeared, even though one of my favourite tipples is a Bloody Mary, which properly made is indeed considered to be a cocktail. But as I researched and remembered some of the glory days, I also remembered a French journalist called Pierre Danineau, who in the 60s wrote a column for Le Figaro. And there's always been friendly banter between the French and the English about how they see us and we see them. They call us roast beef. I don't dare tell you what we sometimes call them. But the roast beef, Major Thompson, a character created by Pierre Danineau, was the typical English gentleman. He always was impeccably dressed in a suit, carried a brolly. Some places in the Western world it's known as a bumbershoot, and was carrying a briefcase in most instances, in which Danineau pointed to an invisible briefcase in which one could see a sandwich, which he said every English gentleman carried for his lunch, and also a penny. A penny in old coins, I don't know, about half a cent, I suppose, half a euro, half a what. But anyway, half a new pence was carried because that's the amount that it took to put into the slot of the public toilet. So every English gentleman was always prepared. And Danineau paints an incredible picture of the English gentleman. But in one of his books, and he wrote several about Major Thompson and about the English, is he writes about Major Thompson going to New York and finding himself, and I suppose this would be in the 1960s, finding himself invited to a cocktail party. And as a good English gentleman, sort of more or less pines, what on earth is a cocktail party? Well, I was in North America in the 1960s, and I enjoyed many, many cocktail parties. They were the center of social existence, and people prepared very carefully not only the food that they would offer to their guests, but also what sort of cocktails. One of the vestiges of the cocktail circuit was a chain of cocktail bars, I suppose they were, but they were restaurant cocktail bars called Trader Vic's, and they were built in the image of a Polynesian war room, where the warriors would gather ready to go out and bash heads over any silly Englishmen who dared to stand on their shores, and indeed they did do to various people, including Captain Cook. But these were stylized cocktail bars, and they had some exotic cocktails. They were a mixture of rum-based and fruit juice cocktails with wonderful names like a Wahine, a Molokai Mike, and the wonderful Scorpion. The Scorpion was a large bowl with a gardenia floating in the middle of this rum and fruit cocktail concoction. Each of the drinkers was given a straw, and you raced to see who could finish it. You didn't need too many of those throughout the evening to know that you'd been at Trader Vic's and you'd had a Scorpion. The other strange thing was that the bowl in which it came, there were 4 fertility figures, and it was almost impossible not to sort of pat them on the head. So I rather think that they helped the population explosion at the time. Nonetheless, that was the cocktail of the day. And cocktails were in such full flurry, such full flush. They were so acceptable in society that Esquire magazine and Playboy magazine put out books on how to make the perfect cocktail, but also 365 reasons to have a cocktail party. And the one I remember particularly was Jiffy the giraffe's birthday. And Jiffy the giraffe was an animal that had been secreted in one zoo or another throughout the world, but everybody was invited on a particular day to have a cocktail party to celebrate Jiffy the giraffe's birthday. Such was the grip of cocktails in those days. Not anymore. I woke up the other day and thought about cocktails, and I thought, yes, we still have them. You still see them advertised in pubs and bars, but the range and the wonder of the cocktail age has gone almost forever. Now, in researching this, I thought, in my halcyon days, I had my Wahines and the occasional Scorpion in Trader Vic's in Vancouver, in British Columbia. And I thought, I wonder what it was like. Do I remember it? So I looked up various pictures of the Trader Vic's cocktail bar in the Bayshore Inn in Vancouver. And sure enough, it flooded back with memories. But quite accidentally, I came across a newspaper article praising a very well-known local lady, Diane Forsyth Abbott. And she was pictured with a number of ladies, and she was a master of the art of making good banquets and dinner parties and so on, and had gained international recognition for that. And I looked and I thought, that name rings a bell. So I did a bit more research, and sure enough, my good friend of many a year, David Kingsmill Abbott, had married her. I think she was about the 4th wife that he'd had, and I knew all of them. David was a great character, an Irishman. He once, when he was in Ireland and I was in Northern Ireland, turned up at the front door and said, Keith, I've made a mistake. I made a booking at a hotel and they haven't got any record of it. I've got the entire Irish athletics team with me. What can you do? So we spread the Irish athletics team out around many houses in the area and had half a dozen lying on my floor for the night. One was a trainee priest who fell in love with my daughter, which was not a very good thing for either of them, since priests were still, I suppose, supposed to not have sex and to be absolutely pure as the driven snow. Anyway, I wandered a little bit off track because David would regularly hold court in the Bayshore Inn to have cocktails. We had many a good time, but he was recognized by the authority in British Columbia by being given a fellowship, a lifetime award for his contribution to broadcasting, not least of which is also to cocktail drinking. And I've got that little thing again which tells me that I'm running out of time, but nonetheless it's a good thing probably because I've rabbited on for quite some time. It's a strange way, I suppose, of talking about the cocktail. But cocktails are wonderful, wonderful things, and I would hope that they might make a return. And that in remembering my good friend David Kingsmill Abbott, by seeing his picture with his wife, Diane Forsyth Abbott, and his daughter Ingrid in newspaper articles surrounding Trader Vic's, made me cast my mind back to different days when I was living in North America. The cocktail was king in North America. I'm not sure that it was ever king here. I'm not sure that it ever really caught on. But a cocktail is a cocktail is a cocktail, and they are marvellous, marvellous things. So, we had planned to talk about wine snobbery, quite important. So many people are intimidated by going to parties where everybody seems to know what they're talking about when it comes to wine. 90% of them don't. It's just an effect. It's a way to show that they are rather superior to the people around them. So don't be intimidated, and there is a little trick that you can get around to fight back. And we were also going to have a little bit of a cricket, because many a day I have sat in the long room at many different county ground and England ground and had a drink, not necessarily a cocktail, while the innings was going on and wickets were tumbling and bowlers were having a field day. And so often happened in the 70s and the 80s. Not so much today. We're rather better at cricket than we were. But anyway, we will talk about wine snobbery, and we'll talk about cricket in our next program, which comes in a week's time. So I hope that you'll forgive my ramblings, but it just shows how you can start off with Pierre Danino and a column in Le Figaro about what an Englishman is in the eyes of a Frenchman, all the way through the cocktail circuit to Vancouver, British Columbia, where I suddenly rediscovered an old friend who unfortunately passed into the great cocktail bar in the sky in 2017, David Kingsmill Abbott. So please forgive me for my memories, and I'll see you soon. In the cocktail way, toodle pip, toodle pip. Hello. Well, there we go. We remove that, and I hope you just enjoyed my little reminiscence there. It is now 10:48. It's virtually, well, let's say it's 12 minutes to the witching hour of 11 o'clock when we say goodbye to you. But let me say a couple of things. First of all, one is I just referred to the cricket, and that starts in 10 minutes' time with the series once again finely poised. It is no question that Australia and England have two teams very well matched, and they are fighting like crazy to take the spoils. And although the Australians lead 2-1 at the moment, is that their two victories came with just a few runs. And we were very, very close at pushing them to the very bitter end. And today seems like a similar tussle of two giants. And some of the pundits are saying that these are the best tests ever. Well, of course, that's subjective. Depends which age you live in. But nonetheless, the standard of cricket is very high. And not only that, but the English team have brought an element of entertainment to the 5-day game, making it exciting but also amusing and entertaining to watch. So we've got to give them credit for that. And now, just let me remind you of what we've talked about this morning, because we majored in our non-news time on Stephen Catlin, the former mayor and councillor here, who passed away perhaps about a month ago now. And a very fine man, and the tributes roared in for him. The depot is doing a tribute to him, I think, an evening of verse and memories and so on. We, on the other hand, want to not resurrect, is to restore to pride his pride and joy, which was the secret garden. And to that end is John Henty, our entertainment reporter, has agreed to lend his name to being the spearhead for it. So we will now start to get things underway. And eventually we will ask you for contributions. But for the moment, it's just we will approach the council and ask that we can do that. Because if not, we got to find out something else, which I think is then what we do is we do a typical woke thing. We commission a watering can, a huge watering can, and then we secretly bring it in at midnight and park it in the middle of the high street. Everybody else is doing that sort of thing. Why shouldn't we? No, we're respectable. And we are used to the fact that respectable people are always blocked by councils. There's always some reason why you can't. And I suppose that's partly the frustration that many young people in various groups find. They're told they can't. It's always negative instead of positive. Well, let's start to prod our local council to being positive. And the fact that we actually focused on Stephen Catlin this morning is also he was a great believer in freedom of information, freedom of speech, freedom as democracy really means it, which is a rare commodity today. And this morning, the headline in the newspapers was in the main that Coutts Bank, owned by NatWest, who recently abandoned Lewis. So we have very little to be thankful for them as it is. But they decided to dump Nigel Farage on political grounds. And it is now coming out that apparently they do this to people who they don't like their politics. That is the most dangerous thing to freedom of speech that has ever happened in this country that I can ever recall. And some people have started to liken it to the McCarthy era in the United States. And for those who say, who was McCarthy? He was a senator who decided that he must root out all communist influence in the United States. And he set free a witch hunt of people who, with the slightest suggestion that they might be socialists, were hounded and in some instances sent to prison and appeared before Senate committees whose reputations were destroyed. And it was a witch hunt that there was no let up. and that we should support it. Well, this is very akin to that. I am not fond of banks anyway. I don't think that they're following their remit. I think that this let's make lots of profits, because the average profit that a bank is making, a retail bank is making, is a couple of £1 billion annually, and that's a lot of money. But they are in a relentless pursuit of money, not to the benefit of society, not to the benefit of the community. And at long last, the government is talking about revoking its permit to operate if it doesn't actually mind its P's and Q's. Will it work? Or will, once again, the power of these huge institutions, and they are powerful institutions because of the amount of money that sloshes through them, will these institutions try to determine in a woke-like way the way that we should all live, but mostly how we should think? And that is the most dangerous thing of all. Yes, we can persuade others to think like us. We can change our minds. We can do all sorts of things with thinking, but we must not be told and forced to think in a particular way, because if we are, we lose all freedom of expression, all feeling that we have a right to say what is unpopular, all freedom to criticize our leaders when they do things that we don't like. And we've got one at the moment, and we're being very critical, and we're finding a lot of support, and that is the moving of Charleston to the old council chambers in Southover, the district council offices. Now, let's be clear, we have nothing against Charleston. It's a good charity. It's an interesting one. The Virginia Woolf set were interesting people, hedonistic people. What they did made Playboy look like a section of the Bible. But it's a wealthy organization. And should we, as taxpayers, be footing the $250,000 bill to keep Southover going while they occupy it with displays to explain what Charleston was all about, who Virginia Woolf was, how she committed suicide here in Lewis, well, in Rodmell, which is just south. It is a very interesting organization that we do not have any quarrel with. We do have quarrels with the fact that the center of governance has moved out of Lewis to Eastbourne, which is the craziest thing that I have ever come across. And all those councillors who were subjected to that, and many were Tories, by the way, in case you think that I'm being anyway biased. It was a crazy thing to do, but there has been no move to try and redress it, except to open a potty little shop in the precinct in Lewis. They don't even understand their own role. They don't understand that we're looking for flagship people. We're looking for a King Richard the Lionheart, waving his sword and donning his armor, taking us bravely into a very, very uncertain 22nd century. '21st century, I guess. That's what we're looking for. Inspiration, spark. We're not getting any of it from these people. And now it turns out that in the big institutions, who are not serving us well at all. The powers that be, the people that sit in the boardrooms, are sitting there saying this is how people should think. And that is bloody, bloody frightening. It is, indeed. And that's what's in your newspapers this morning as front page headlines. And it's something which we find as an anathema and must be stopped. Yes. It sounds as if I'm just denying what I just said about freedom of thought. That isn't thinking. That is using huge authority and power to tell the rest of us what to think and what to do. Not on. Okay. It's 11 o'clock. I'm going to say goodbye until tomorrow morning. And tomorrow we'll be back with another day of actually, I say dirty dancing, the dirty thinking is naughty thinking. We dare to think the unacceptable. We dare to criticize what's going on in our community. We dare to suggest that change is necessary, if not inevitable. Till tomorrow. Toodle pip.